Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 61 of the NTS Podcast. One of the best episodes each split, of course, the big tier list right before the split starts. And this time we're joined by Froomie, who asked to come on. I had he's apparently some unemployed guy, and he said that he used to be on some team called Barrage, but I looked and they don't seem to exist. So I don't know. But Froomie, you're welcome on anyway. I suppose you can give your views.
Yeah, thanks very much. I've been watching every year with these ones and just pulling my hair out. So I thought, it'd be time to come on and just, give a bit of education
Oh,
so that we can improve the content.
we're gonna get schooled today. I think it's gonna be horrific. And I'm gonna introduce myself, Lee. I'm Tom. I am the NLC predictions king right now. So clearly my knowledge is great, and I can't wait to be the NLC predictions king again.
Yeah,
There you go.
let's ignore what you said off stream then about your preparation, and we'll just focus on what you just said there. So let's jump into it then, shall we? Yeah,
so
definitely.
much prep.
Let's just jump straight in. So what we'll do, we'll go for each team. We've got a little graphic up on the stream that everyone I'm sure can see. We'll go through team by team, each give our thoughts, and then try to agree, the three of us now somehow, on which tier to put each team. So as you see, S plus down to D, they will all be filled with at least one team each, I think, as well. Let's start off then with what I reckon is the easiest one, BCXL. Is anyone going to not put them in the top tier? I would doubt it, right?
I mean, you're gonna have to say that they're the best team, surely. Like they did very well at E Masters, apparently, from what I've been told. No, but I think that they obviously haven't changed anything. I can't imagine them getting worse. I just think that they are clearly the best team out of the lot. I mean, obviously the only other doubt is Fnatic, and we'll get on to Fnatic a little bit later. But I think that right now, there was no need to make changes. They've still got a Rome there, which is again quite ridiculous. I feel like they're just the best team. This is probably going to be the least we're going to be speaking about a team. Genuinely, I don't think there's a lot to say.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree with Tom. Some would say they overachieved at EUM, but I think going into it, we had small hopes that they could potentially win the tournament. And everyone's got to be happy with a runner-up and a good showing against KOVA, who were by far the best team in the tournament. I'm surprised that Arome is actually still in the team. I was borderline expecting him to be swapped with Kryze, because obviously Kryze has NLC residency, being Swedish. I thought, maybe Arome is going to get another crack at the LEC, but it wasn't to be. But I think, why would you change anything? It's working well. You can only hope that it's going to get better. I think they have the best top jungle and AD carry in the league. Obviously support mid very, very strong as well. Yeah, definitely the best team in the competition. I'd say by quite a lot right now, unless things change going into this split.
Yeah, definitely.
Freemate, are you able to turn yourself a little bit up? I think you're a little bit quiet for people.
Oh, it's all right. I've turned him up for mine just now anyway, so I think that should help a little bit.
What you said is that BT were terrible, guys. I'm just going to say that, and that's his D tier side.
But I was going to say as well, because I'm sure people saw on Twitter over the last few days that Riot had basically leaked any unannounced teams, and you could basically go on check on the different ERLs on the LoL Esports site and go on the teams and see their players. And XL, as you imagine, has still got the 5 players that they had last split, plus Mikma now as a second mid laner as well. So we'll see if there's any chance he gets a show in if Hatrix has a couple of off games. But yeah, that's obviously the only change I think for them. But yeah, not one that we imagine having much impact anyway. So let me stick him in S plus then as the easy first one. And actually, I've just realised. There we go.
Oh, I mean, that is terrible, that league. There you go.
It's because I had to refresh it because I almost had to change my whole thing because Froomie wanted to do a bloody E tier. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, sorry to the team that's going in my E tier. At one point I had A plus as well, but I got rid of that.
Yeah, we've made it a bit easier. So move on from XL then. Like we say, that's the easiest one. Should be the shortest one. And then we'll go to Dusty, who is I think it's an entirely new roster, all 5 players, which I suppose maybe isn't a huge surprise given that they were almost relegated last split. So you can kind of imagine them making changes, but then I don't know, what I've seen so far this roster release hasn't blown me away, and I've still got it fairly low down. I've put them in C tier, with only one team really below that. But yeah, it was just, I don't know, for a team that like almost got relegated the last time, you'd think maybe it would be a sort of a bit of a kick up the arse really to try and put together a proper good roster this time round. And then I didn't really see many that looked like upgrades from the players that I knew at least.
Yeah, actually, I've got Dusty in D. I was really torn because it's like quite harsh, but I think like I look at the roster and I think there's a lot of mechanics, but I don't see where the voice for the team is going to come from. I know Sawyer, very strong mechanical jungler, right? And I remember he was on Feeling. I trialed him a few times back in the day, going back to when I was on Enclave. And the main weakness I saw is he's got no voice. And I think if you're a jungler with little voice, with a mid laner like Varshi, who we've seen in the UKC before and in Ultraliga, his results haven't been fantastic throughout his career. I think Zombie was one of the weaker top laners in the league last split. I think their saving grace is their bot lane, right? Like M-Test, extremely experienced, and I think is an underrated AD carry. Like I've seen M-Test play a few times. I've had him in trials. He's decent vocally, and I think he's mechanically strong. Like for me, he is their stalwart player. That wasn't enough for Godsent last split when they had M-Test. So I don't see why it'd be any better for Dusty. I don't think they'll be in relegation unless something goes really wrong. But I don't see them making the playoffs. I don't see them doing anything special. It really depends on Flash. Like I talked to Flash a little bit in the off season when I was doing work for Barrage. I think he's a coach with the right mentality and the correct ambition. Maybe he can drive the voice out of some of these players, because that's going to be the key for Dusty. If he can get the players talking, they have an outside shot. But on paper, the roster doesn't excite me too much.
I hate to kind of agree, but I'm going to start off with like the positives, really, and I'm going to say, look,
because you're Dusty's biggest hater, aren't you, Tom? So you've got to like try and not sound too mean.
No, I think that like M-Test and Baloo are great, and I think they're a solid NLC kind of bot lane. I do think that, like you said, they're gonna do too well. I'm okay on Zombie getting another chance with Godsent. I agree that maybe he wasn't like the best player on Godsent in the NLC, but it was by far for me like not like the worst player in the league, really. I am a little bit unsure on Sawyer. I think, like you said, Sawyer's the one where I'm like, he could be someone who could potentially work with a team really well and it clicks for him, but I just haven't seen that for him. And Warzy, like, it's just nice to see Warzy back. Honestly, I quite liked him when he was at Enclave. Nice to see him back going from the Ultraliga. So he could have improved. Obviously didn't have the greatest time really when we last saw him, but maybe he has got a little bit better. And I agree. I think that this could be a roster where you kind of don't expect them to do as well as what they actually do. They could be a group of players which actually do go together and can actually connect and go far. And you've already got, like you said, I mean, synergy between, I guess, top laner and ADC doesn't really mean too much, but at least it's something from a communication standpoint that could help a little bit. But I have them C. I don't have them bottom, but I'm not that impressed by this roster. And I think the main thing really is that, and it's no offense to all these players, but there's not one player which I kind of looked at and be like, right, okay, this is the player which I'm kind of hanging my hopes on. They all seem like, could be solid players, but no one I think could, for me personally, make that next step. Where in other teams, while there may be some players who I think are like less quality, there is like an X factor in there, which it could be like, okay, no, but that person could definitely help the team gain a few wins.
Did you know that Sawyer is the highest elo jungler on the server right now?
Yeah, but I don't think elo means much.
No, it doesn't. But I'm just saying, like, if he can find his voice and he can bounce off Varshi, which I think could be difficult. But if they can do that, then they have a good shot. But from what I know about the players, I think they're going to struggle.
Yeah, I'd say with maybe with that bot lane as well that we said is one that at least looks like we're pretty sure they should be NLC level. I feel like Baloo as well, like last split playing with a Chu is obviously one of the better ADCs. Maybe it's a bit more time for him to stand out too. Like playing with someone like Achu, it should, as a support, it should be pretty not easy to look good, but like you've got a good chance to look good if you're playing alright. So it'd be interesting to see him with a different ADC as well. We've got to try and agree on a tier then. But I think Froomie, you also, because didn't you do A+ to E. So
No, I've done S plus S, A, B, C, D, E, and I put Dusty in D. The only team in D.
oh, what? So they're
So-
oh right, yeah. So
No, there's one below them. There's one team below them on my list.
So I would say we put them in C because my lowest is D. I
yeah,
think
we'll
is
take
the
the
fairer.
average.
yeah,
we'll take the
I think that's
average.
fair. All right then. Going on from that is Fnatic Rising, who when we did this in the spring, obviously with the same lineup, I actually had them S plus with XL. Clearly, that can't be the case anymore. At least, just going off of what we saw last spring, they were clearly not as good, and there was an obvious gap there. So yeah, I've got them S tier as a result of that. But then I wouldn't be hugely shocked if they did sort of step up and reach XL's level, having obviously had half the year together already, and it's not like the players on paper aren't any good to be able to do that either. So I don't know. I've got them S for now, but then it's one that I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the split they could be S plus.
So I think that you're not wrong to kind of put them a tier below. Personally, I have still put them in S plus because I do think that like when I look at BT and Fnatic, and it is probably because they're academy teams, I do think that there is kind of a gap between like all the other teams. And that's why I don't have an S team. I have an S and then an S plus because I do think that there is that gap, and I think that the gap isn't kind of that much between BT and Fnatic. While Fnatic didn't particularly look great, they still looked like good, I think, through the regular season in most cases anyway. And, the European Masters performance was, they should have got better. They should have done better. They should have done. But I do think that actually, given maybe a little bit of time, giving these players more time to kind of gel, get used to each other, and hopefully identify like a solid play style that will work for them, I can't see them having as bad as a split as what I think they did in spring. And at the end of the day, it wasn't like a terrible split for them. It's just terrible from a European Masters standpoint.
I think a big difference between Fnatic and XL is, on XL you've got, players that have been at the top end ERLs and players that have been in academy teams. More leadership characters, less rookies. And I think when you look at like Fnatic Rising, you've got players like Bean, Maxi, who he was on an academy team in North America, but I think there's a big difference between like the type of players he's playing with. North America traditionally, their academy teams are full of rookies. Here we tend to have a bit more of a mix. I think it's time for Bivin to step up and lead the roster a little bit. I've gone with Lee, where I've put them one tier below in S. I think the main reason is the Masters. I don't think we would have seen BTXL lose to G2 Arctic in the play-ins. And that's like a big thing is Fnatic Rising didn't make the main stage, which is a shame. I think better than a lot of teams. But yeah, I was originally going to put them level with two of the teams in A tier, but then I looked at the difference and I was like, players like for Bivin, Maxi, big players, Rocks as well, who I think is probably the best support in the league still. Plus they have the resources of being in Berlin, working with the main team, great coaching staff. I think DeLord is a really good coach, and I think as we start going into the tournament, they are just a little bit behind XL. But if XL go into a dip and Fnatic manage to find their form, it's possible that they take them over. I don't think so, but yeah, I've put them in S.
I say we'll go.
And let's be honest. Though. Like I think that Maxi's going to learn so much off new star jungler Blippo. So I don't know it. I know it sounds really silly, but that actually could play a factor in Maxi as well. Because you would expect that Maxi would be helping Blippo at least with a little bit of it, So it's a bit of a weird roles reverse situation.
Yeah, that's funny because actually, when we had Maxi on a couple months ago, I think we asked him about that, and he said like, it was great, being on the same org as Self-Made, and maybe you can like watch him in scrims and that. And now he's just got an autofill to look up to, which is unfortunate.
You've learned it. He's learned it. Now he's got to teach it. Is that it's the next step?
I don't know. Maybe it could even be. Maybe it's disheartening as well. You could think, well, if Self-Made wanted out, or they wanted to get rid of Self-Made, why wouldn't they put me up there instead of?
Yeah, well, he didn't do good enough at EU Masters. Let's be honest. Like,
Maybe,
I don't want to be one of those people, but I do think that like you kind after a performance like that. I think, if I'm being honest.
I thought, Fnatic had made the strangest change in the offseason, and then SK and Cloud9 are just like, hold my beer.
Don't.
Like, I was just like, okay, right, one of these is going to... You just know one of the two, Fnatic and SK, one of the two is going to go well, and one of the others is going to go disastrous, and whichever one goes disastrous, they're going to look terrible.
Hey, Treats was a terrible... He wasn't their best player at all,
Yeah, I was just going to say, that is... For him to agree to that is absolutely mental. I mean, like... Was he? I don't know if would he like not rookie of the split pretty much as well.
Treats is a lovely guy, so I don't know whether he's just gone. Yeah, I can do it. Yeah, I can do it. Get Jesse in. Like I reckon a lot of it is Jesus pushing to play support personally, because I know that he likes to come out of retirement and he probably sees himself as being able to contribute. But we'll see. And he's always done well. Like with the teams he's been in, he's always done well. So who knows? Just go with it. Just go with it. See how it goes. No one cares about SK really, do they? Like. Nah. One of them is going to go terrible. The other one's going to go great.
We'll see. All right. Let's move on from Fnatic then. And the next one is Godsent, who is maybe one. It's a bit. This is what we kind of talked about this a little bit off stream. So I think Godsent is one of the only teams still not officially announced. However, if we talk about their team, we're not leaking anything. It is literally on the LoL Esports website. We've checked just before the stream started. It's still live. It's been there for like 1 or 2 days now. That Riot have just had the rosters up without the teams having announced them. So we're not leaking anything before anyone gets angry.
And I do want to say something. When does the NLC start? Is it Wednesday?
Wednesday, yeah.
So I'm like, it's Wednesday. Like, how late do you want us to do this tier list? Like.
Oh, don't say that, Froomie. That was you tweeted about that, didn't you? About people saying that.
Yeah, but I think there's a limit. Like, you have to. I mean, last year with Barrage, like I remember this. I had a stress dream about it, so I know it's about this time last year where we were doing the roster, and I was pulling my hair out. I managed to pull it all together, and then we put out. I think we locked in like a day before the deadline, and we put out an announcement which like got 1.2k likes, which for an NLC org was massive. And I was just thinking like. People threatening to just like release the rosters and leak it and kill the hype without giving the orgs a chance to release their rosters is just a bit wrong. Because, I think even though the orgs with less money can struggle to lock in a roster late, they can still put out some good content with the teams that they've got. And but LoL Esports basically like was a better version of Voodoo.
Yeah, and it's not even just the NLC. It's literally
every are off.
Yeah, like I felt bad for the LFL orgs more than anything, but like given like the popularity of the LFL and stuff like that, I think Riot very quickly put that down. I believe, like I think they got rid of all that.
Yeah,
but Riot don't care about the NLC.
So if I'm being honest, I haven't checked the LoL Esports thing because I was under the impression that it was down. So I don't know Godsent's roster like at all, really. So I might. Check it now.
Yeah,
it's Kubu, Aesthetic, 610, who's a rookie mid, Yusa and Sven, who was the support for Galaxy Racer last split. Who likes to play like top and mid. Who likes to play top and support. He was briefly on Misfits Academy and Na'Vi, so he's experienced. Yeah. That's the roster. Monkeys is coaching.
Yeah, and that is announced, so that's not.
My boy Monkeys.
Oh, I saw that. So yeah, I like that.
I did want to ask you just while we're on, when you bring that up, because obviously you got him on Barrage before, right? When it.
Monkeys.
Yeah, a couple of times, right?
Enclave, Barrage again. Yeah, so one of the nicest guys in esports. Very, very passionate. The only downside to Monkeys, I suppose, is like when like he takes losing like not badly, like he's not toxic, but it like hits him hard to home when
takes it to heart.
Yeah, but like great guy, and I think he is really, really smart about the game, and I know that he'll try and emulate Hansen in the way that he works because Hansen spent a lot of time working with him. So he was on Masonic last split, who finished. I think they lost in the semi-finals in Telia, despite not being rated as one of the higher teams. Yeah, I think Monkeys will do fine as a head coach. I think the team is okay, but I know that Godsent traditionally doesn't put in a huge amount of budget.
Yeah,
they still do well though, don't they? That's the thing with Godsent. It's a little bit. It's like they don't put a lot in, but then they they seem to just be there next split. Like there was hardly any doubt. I think like really last split of them struggling. Like there was like a little bit, but nothing compared to like the other teams and stuff like that. And obviously the year before they did really well and made it into playoffs, didn't they?
Yeah, I think the standard of the NLC in the first split this time last year, everyone was looking at the Godsent roster like, this is going to struggle. And it overachieved. It got absolutely dumpstered by Barrage in the playoffs. But yeah, in the group they did really, really well. I actually think this team's okay. I've put them in C tier.
Yeah, same here. And I feel like this is maybe one, obviously quite dependent probably on 610 the mid laner. Being like you say, he's a complete rookie, so it's maybe one that maybe like could be the biggest chance at an upset. Really, I don't know, because it depends how good he comes out. Really, he could be the next Caps, and they might just like well overachieve.
I mean, he's surrounded by, what would you say, like relatively 4 veterans. Like Aesthetic's been around for a long time, being in multiple ERLs. Kubu's been in multiple ERLs. Yusa's been around a long time. Svenny's been around a long time. I think it's a good environment for a rookie mid. And 610 has been climbing the ladder quite a lot. And I think if like 4 veterans have played with him, you'd expect them all to sort of be like, yeah, there's something about him. They've seen a lot of players, and if they think that he can work with the roster, then Monkeys knows like which players are good and which players are not going to be good. So I guess they must have confidence in him if all of the veteran players and the Monkeys are saying, let's give him a go.
Yeah, obviously nice to see Yusa
and
make it.
I think like, as I was saying that, yeah, Yusa is one. Like glad to see kind of Yusa, make his way back. Obviously, I did think it was just going to be with Resolve, but obviously we'll get to Resolve's roster later. But it's nice to see him kind of climb back in and hopefully can keep it going, because I think he did really well under Resolve. Obviously, it's a bit of a different beast, UKLC now to NLC, but you hope that things continue. Obviously, we saw it even bigger jump last split with Dragdar, who kind of worked his way up UKEL to NLC. So hopefully we can kind of get something similar there with Yusa.
Where did you have them then, Tom? We've both got them C tier.
Oh, so off the little chat which we had, and me literally knowing the roster now, C. Yeah, I don't think it's a weird one actually though, because when you've been talking about it, I can kind of see them potentially maybe even doing a little bit better if kind of did the star line a little bit in some case, because like you said, there are people who the whole team is basically a group of people who know what to do at this level, really. And then it is kind of the unsurety of the new mid laner, and that could actually enhance a team or decrease a team. So I think C's a good spot to put them.
Fair enough. I just realised that I skipped Galaxy Racer. I did say alphabetical order, and we've gone from we just skipped over to Godsent. So let's take a step back to Galaxy Racer. Another one that didn't announce their team yet. But again,
they announced 4 of them, didn't they? I believe so.
I think 3 of them are confirmed now. It's Kakan, Jedki, and Monk are not going anywhere. And I know that RNG is still going to be their coach.
Yeah. So what LoL Esports is telling us then is that Tibor is their mid laner, and Wendelbo is their support. And again, that's not a leak from us. It's literally on the LoL Esports site. I had these actually pretty high up, to be fair. Off the players that I knew, at least. I don't know much about Tibor, to be fair. But yeah, the rest of them we've obviously seen on Galaxy Racer before. Plus, like Monk, obviously we've seen him time and time again. And we know that when he's playing ADC, he is a very strong ERL player. So I actually had them in B tier. I had them pretty high.
I've gone for C, because I look at this roster very similarly as I think this roster could be a tier team if they all perform really well and maybe to their ability. But then I'm like, but on the other hand, they could also be a dumpster fire and probably be the worst team in the league. Genuinely, because I feel like that's some of the players which are there. Like Monk, obviously a lot of people look at Monk. He's someone who mechanically we know is really, really good, but has suffered with a lot of problems, and whether that be mental or else. And kind of how does he kind of fit into this? Is this kind of like a resurgence, a little bit for Monk, is trying to like humble himself to work his way up. I think Wendelbo, if that is the confirmed support, I think that is a great support to have by his side, if I'm being honest. But I also could see like a little bit of flaws with this roster as well. And are they going to get picked apart as opposed to, I say, teams which maybe aren't as like technically as good, but more has like a synergy positive as opposed to Galaxy Racer. But so I've gone for C tentatively, but they could be really, really good. But I do always have doubts with some of those players. Of, like, is it just going to be like relegation? Like, and I hope not. Like, I really hope not.
Yeah, I'm the same as Tom, where I've got them in like B and D, so I put them in C. Look, it really depends on Monk. It fully depends on Monk, like which Monk are you getting. He has his issues where he can tilt very, very easy. In fact, on teams before, back in the day, like with Barrage, and even further back with that, when he was in the UK scene briefly with Enclave, it's been like, if you target Monk and put him on tilt, then you win the game. I'm not sure Wendelboe is the best fit to deal with that. I think Wendelboe is a great player. I think it's a very solid pickup for support and probably an upgrade on Sven. Like, experienced, mechanically quite sound. Definitely one of the better supports in the league. I don't know if he'll be able to deal with Monk's attitude, is the problem. I mean, the guy plays with Rai, who's one of the most Copus Mantis AD carries going. I don't know. I don't think Wendelboe will deal well with Monk tilting. I think Jedgkey is a really good jungler, though. Like, from what I saw watching Telia Sweden and Telia Masters in the promo relegation season, I think he's solid. I think he can be one of the better junglers in the league.
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't go anywhere else, if I'm being honest. But maybe it was like, maybe they locked him down very early. It could also be that as well.
One of the deals, maybe. I mean, there's three of them still there. I mean, why would you leave Galaxy Racer? I'm sure they can pay a lot of money. Like, goodbye money, man. Like, they're loaded. Kakan, bog standard for the league. Not terrible by any means, but it does give you very Eminem vibes, doesn't it? Like Kakan and Monk. I know it's not Monk mid because that was disastrous, but like, I think Kakan is steady. I think it's a weaker NLC than he was in the first time, and I think he will hold his own in that league. Question marks over Tibor. I mean, what is on Godskiller in the Baltic ERL, which is the worst ERL in my opinion out of the 12. But he still came top 2. He could be good. Like, he's quite high up on the ladder at the minute. And again, RNG been around a long time. Been with a lot of good players. Maybe he sees something in him. I think like Group B has 4 teams in it where any of them could end up last, and any of them could end up taking that 3rd playoff spot. Because remember, it's 3 playoff spots this time, not 4. And I think Galaxy Racer, if Monk is on form, take that 3rd spot. If Monk is not, then they could very easily be at the bottom. So I don't know. I'll put them in C. I think it could go either way. I think they could be really good or terrible. It's up to you, Monk. What do you want to do?
Yeah, I think that's fair. What you say with Tibor as well being maybe like the biggest question mark, but where you said, yeah, like with RNG, obviously it has been around a long time, and talking about like them probably having one of the larger budgets, I'm sure if they wanted to get a different mid laner, they probably could have done and could have afforded it. So can only imagine that someone that they're more or less happy with.
Yeah.
All right, moving on from Galaxy Racing, I put them C. I was the only one that had them B anyway, so it averages out. I'll take the L for that one. But yeah, after that then is Granit.
Yeah. I know so much about this roster, so much.
The first thing I saw when I saw it, I kind of wondered where. Like, I was thinking, where's Sahira gone? Like, he was like their best player, and then he's
not resolved, isn't he? Which is better than Granit by a lot.
Well, yeah, it's a tricky one because I kind of thought that when I saw Absolved roster with like it's got like Scood and Rhea and that on there as well, and I was thinking he looks like he's gone to good roster, but then he's like technically a step down in leagues though. But yeah, looking at the rest of the Granite team, it's not. I think the only player I knew of was Indecision from obviously seeing him last split. Yeah. And the rest of them seem. I don't know. Obviously, this is players I've not really seen, so I'm mostly going off of just looking at where they played before. But there was no one that kind of even stood out. I put them actually as D tier, and my only D tier team. So for me, they were the lowest team. I don't know about you guys.
E. I've put them at E. I mean, there's a lot of parts in this roster that could be good, but I don't see a leader in the roster. I think there's too many rookies in there. I know we saw Indecision last split, but I didn't think he was one of the stronger players on Godsent. He's all right. I've heard mixed things about Muta. I know that Muta is extremely passionate and wants to do well. The same with Baybro, but they haven't played at this level. They've been okay at the levels below in Div 2. Hess Zero is the top laner I don't know much about, but again, I've heard some good things. But there is no leader on this roster, unless like I'm missing something. I can't see who's going to be the voice. And the worst part is the coaching staff in the background is inexperienced as well. So who's going to tell them how to play the game? Who's going to keep them zen after a loss? Because there's going to be a lot of losses for this team. It could be completely wrong. It could be like a Godsent story, or even Granite last season was similar. When we thought, these teams aren't making, they both make the playoffs. Like on paper, and it's purely on paper, I think this is the worst team in the league, and they have the lowest budget in the league as far as I'm aware. And I know from rumors in the grapevine that they already changed the coach last minute before the lock, so they were going to go with a different coach who built the roster, and then it mustn't have been working out, or someone had something happen, and they changed it. So that already says to me unstable, and we haven't even started the split. I think if this roster manages to survive, pat on the back. But I predict them to be bottom of the group, and I put them E. Which I was saying, Froomie, you're being harsh here, but I just can't bring myself to put them on the same level as any others like Dusty that I've just put above them. So I think there's a big gap between them and Dusty. So yeah.
Yeah, I think, you know what, I always like to be a little bit positive, and I'm gonna say this, like, I predicted Granite as the worst team last split. Like, I said that they were by far gonna be the worst team. I didn't think there was gonna be any doubt that they would be, and lo and behold, they did brilliantly, absolutely brilliantly. Like, there's some of these players, like you said, even like Sahira kind of stepped up, became a player which I don't think even a lot of people expected him to kind of be in terms of how he was competing against some of these NLC players. So a very similar thing could happen here, but I do agree. It's hard to then give them an extra grade just because a previous roster, which is a totally different roster, did a very similar thing. I hope them all the best, and to be fair, you want to see players who are kind of not had this opportunity yet succeed and take it by the horns. And to be fair, like, that could be a very important part in the early stages of the season. If you got these players who are young, hungry, kind of want to prove a point, I think it's great to do it at the beginning of the season and try to prove a lot of people wrong. But I just think from like you said, Indecision is the only one which I'm really fully aware of. Like I said, I don't think he was bad. I don't think he was great. And yeah, I don't really see much going on in this roster. Like you said, it's like, who is this person who's going to kind of take them and give them this experience of, okay, this is how this type of team kind of plays a little bit. Because especially with, unlike some other seasons, like now we're starting to see rosters stay together as well, which is not happened too much for a lot of times. So having someone who kind of has that prior knowledge, or that knowledge of some of the players who are also competing in there, does probably help a lot. And like you said, with coaching being inexperienced, so I do have them bottom. My bottom was D, so I do have them D. But I like I said, I love an underdog story. We had it with Godsent, we had it with Granite last year. Maybe we're going to get it with Granite this year as well. But
yeah,
I can't put them higher on a hunch. Like,
yeah, same. I put them D then. That's the lowest tier we've got anyway. So yeah, it's basically the lowest for all of us. One thing that was weird, though, especially when I saw that obviously none of the players from last split were there, I just went through and checked each one, and basically everyone has more or less had a step down in terms of the leagues like they're in. Obviously, like we said, Sahira maybe he's got a better roster, still in the Telia leagues, and some of the other ones are still in like top tier ERLs in terms of them being like first divisions, but maybe ones that appear weaker. And it makes me even wonder why, because you obviously imagine last split they would have been one of the cheaper budgets as well. And I just wonder what's happened to stop them even getting the same team. I wonder if like the players thought they did fairly well and just like priced themselves out of it somehow. But Yeah, it was really weird for me to see
I think
none
it's
of
just
them
a
say.
change. I think it's a change in decision. I think that what's kind of come on is I think that Granite and like the coaching staff maybe wanted something a little bit different, and they've clearly gone for kind of younger players. Like I don't think there's any doubt about when you look at the ages of the players there, and maybe they just thought, well, if we can find like one really good player out of these 5, that could be something which could help us in the future anyway. I don't know. But I do get what you mean, but maybe they just thought, yeah, it's time to just do something a bit different. But
Yeah.
it's weird.
I mean, Sahira will probably be on 4 times the wage at Absolve because they have way more money than Granite. And why would you stick on a roster that's going to finish near bottom where you can drop down 1 level and probably make a run and have a really good shot at winning Telia and getting promoted anyway, and then next year you're in a roster where they have a decent chance in the league. Probably if they stick with the same roster, it'd probably be like middle of the pack, but you're on a lot more money. Like I think that's probably the decision making for Sahira. Michigu and Dr. Chaos went to My Insanity. Again, they'll be on much better wage packets. And, Prime Div 1 is probably the best second division in the world. And then a lot of players go on from there to do really, really well. I mean, My Insanity, quite a big org, used to be in Prem Prem. As for the rest, I don't really know. Tamoz joined a team that I don't know, so I'm guessing it's going to be money. But yeah, if you were Granite, you'd probably say like, look, that was decent. Let's try and keep it all together. But
Yeah.
even Aragorn left for KOVA, which KOVA's not exactly a huge step up in terms of orgs from Granite. So I don't know. Maybe they fancy something different, but I think what they've ended up with is probably worse, and that's saying something.
Yeah.
If
But
anything, I
no
think it's
disrespect to the players
risky,
that did well
isn't
elsewhere.
it? I
Oh,
think
definitely.
it's hard to say worse right now without us actually seeing them play, in my opinion. But it's definitely more of a risk, And I obviously I don't want to put like words in organizations' mouth, and maybe this is the case, but maybe it is the case of like we're just going to see what we can do in the NLC. With the budget we've got, they haven't got the budget, like you said, with a lot of other teams. So it's let's just try and do something. And
Granite's
I like the fact that they've not just gone for older players, really. They've not got like 5 veterans on the squad who potentially have been in the ERL system for years and years and years. At least they're kind of going for something a little bit fresher.
Granite's budget, from what is rumored, is probably about as much as like Nordavind or Tricked can afford to play a player. For the whole thing, their
Wow.
budget is probably about as much as Nordavind and Tricked. And this isn't, we're not talking about Fnatic or XL. We're talking about the next step down. They can pay for 1 player what Granite have got for their whole roster. So to be competing with teams like that, like it's like, I don't know, Wickham in the championship, isn't it? Like it's gonna be it's borderline impossible. So anything less than relegation, credit to them on the budget they've got.
Fair enough. Let's move on then. We've got KOVA next, who have mostly kept together the same team. I think they've only changed, in terms of the players at least. Proker has left, and they've got Simply in as a replacement, and then Aragorn, as Froomie said there, has joined as the coach as well. I'm actually liking their team, to be fair. Like I thought they're obviously pretty decent, especially for a newly promoted team last split. And from what I've seen of Simply, I would think that's probably a bit a slight upgrade in the mid. Aragorn obviously did really good with Granite last split as well, so high hopes for him joining as a coach. I'd put them in B tier actually. I think they do pretty good.
Oof. Oh, okay. I think they did pretty good. I have to disagree with you there. Like, I think Simply is an upgrade. I am going to say this now. But the issue is that what am I looking at KOVA? Am I looking at KOVA kind of how they performed, or am I looking at kind of where people expect them to kind of perform this year? For me, it's C. Like I can't put them in B, but I can see why, because I think they did perform really well. But for me, like it's always a positive when you keep a lot of your players as well. I think, especially in the early games, you can get maybe a few wins just off having better synergy. But I think B. I mean, I love your positivity, Lee, but I can't put KOVA in B.
I was really tempted to put them in D, but I didn't. I put them in C. I put them in C because for 2 reasons. The first one is the synergy, and the second one is the coach that they brought in. I think if you look at KOVA on paper, the roster's not good. The roster isn't good. I think Outlandish, his voice, what he brings though, like makes him a really good player. Though mechanically, he's like behind, say, the likes of Soft or Taxa.
Mhm.
Simply, I don't know, a bit of a side grade maybe. Like I think he fits the narrative. He's Finnish, he's quite good. Currently in Challenger, he's on the rise. Didn't do too well at Ents, but that was in a harder NLC.
Mhm.
I think Simply will do okay in that roster. Aragorn, I think he was instrumental in Granit's success last season. I talked to him a little bit in the off season. He came across really, really well. I know that he wasn't sure whether he wanted to have a head coach position or an assistant coach position. I think he's hungry to learn more from better coaches, which is why he was probably looking at that. But I think Aragorn is good at driving rosters with potential, and when you've got the synergy that KOVA have, I know that they were under Dennis Ho's last split. I think that Aragorn is probably an upgrade on that. So, in my opinion, better coach, good synergy. But again, they're in that division with the 4 teams that are all so close together in terms of skill that, is it going to be enough to bring them over the line? Because they could easily get that 3rd playoff spot. They could easily end up in relegation. It's 16-game regular season. I think it's going to come down to the results they pick up against each other. I'd put them in C. I think they should. I think they'll maybe survive, but it's going to be. It's either with these teams. It's like one game could make the difference between playoffs and relegation.
I think as well. I think with the way that the new format works, I think Group B will be decided by how well they perform against Group A as well. In my opinion, I think actually that extra game against Group A, I think could decide who kind of gets that third spot really, because I do think that we could potentially be in a situation with Group B where it's like everybody kind of beats each other, and then it's like, well, it's, apart from Fnatic Rising, if we're being honest, but like, and then it might be those victories against the Group A side which could actually bump them up.
Yeah, so what we're saying is it depends how well they do and how many wins they've got. Yeah, I think that's a fair assumption. No, I agree. Like, it's going to be so close between those teams that, the wind can blow funny and just send one of them slightly lower down. Like, I think Group B, the promotion, the battle for the playoffs and the battle to avoid relegation is going to be so interesting.
I don't know how. Well, we'll maybe comment a bit later on, but
we'll get on to the groups at the end. I think
I'll bite my tongue for now. I put them C then. Again, I've been outvoted, so it is what it is.
I mean, we're going to have our separate ones on the Twitter anyway, but yeah,
true.
It shows how many teams
we're looking very negative.
It is exciting though. How many teams in C at the minute shows like how close the league could be this split and how many wins. It's not going to be like an outright top everything. Like there's a lot of teams that are similar in terms of skill, which is good for me. I like it.
True. Moving on then, next team is Nordavind, which, like we're saying, there hasn't been like an official announcement, but from what I'm pretty sure what Nordavind has said before, and
I'm pretty sure we got told on the podcast that they were all 1-year deals. Anyway,
yeah, I think
they've been doing content with the players.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Literally, like within the last week, they had a video coming out with all the same players. So
yeah,
we can very much presume that it is the same lineup.
Well, they took them all off the GCD because Riot was funny about them playing in Telia Norway, which was like the Norwegian Cup competition they have in between the splits, and they took them off the GCD, and they're going to put them back on the GCD, or they might already be back on the GCD, so it's going to be the same roster for sure.
Well, yeah, I had them in A tier then, which, to be fair, I don't think it's much of a difficult one. Obviously, they came did they come 3rd, or was it 3rd or 4th last split? They had, I think, if I remember, they were not struggle, but they took maybe a while to
bad first half.
Yeah, they took a while to kind of get to the point where we kind of expect them to be. Obviously, the fact that
what happens where you put Kerberos on Shen in like the first 2 games,
Let him play Nastus, let him play Kale, let him play these mental champs. Like, play to Kerberos. If you bring Kerberos onto your team, you've got to play to him.
But yeah, the fact that they obviously, it took them a while to sort of warm up and I suppose get used to all playing together. But seeing as the same roster, I don't see there being any excuse for that happening this split. So I'd imagine they, if anything, could maybe even look a bit better than last split. So yeah, I had them as A tier, and I have them level with one other team on A. Does that sound alright for you guys?
I have 4 teams on A.
Oh Christ, Tom. No, I'm the same as Lee, where I've got him level with one other team, and I'm pretty confident that it'll be be the same team. But we'll talk about that later. But yeah, Nordavind for me, like I really like Daruk. I work with Daruk as a coach. You know, we don't always necessarily see eye to eye in terms of our philosophies, but the guy knows how to work well with good players.
Mhm.
I saw him do it on Envision, seen him do it on XL when he won the league, like way back. Like the guy is a good coach. And I think he's perfect for rosters which struggle to begin with, and then he can work with them and bring them together. I think he's a good motivator and a solid leader. And I think the roster is good. Like I think Sharp is a really good jungler, like one of the better junglers in the league. And I think Ericsson has shown many splits in a row that he's got a lot about him. Chrisberg could be on Academy easily. Like I think he's the second best AD carry in the league to Deadly. And how many games did we see last season where Chrisberg just went, "No, I'm carrying now." I think touch is probably one of the weaker points, but then again,
Yeah.
it's really hard to get good supports in EU anyway. And the guy's experienced. He was on Dark Passage, went to MSI back in the day. And obviously he's there because he's Norwegian. They want 3 Norwegian players to play it in Talia because they don't want to chop up the roster. So I get it. And that's a really important competition to them. So fair enough. Yeah, I think Nordavind, especially being in a gaming house, like I think they are probably the 3rd best team in the league, and they're the ones that are going to try and contend Fnatic for that other EU Master spots. Considering it's probably still 2 at this point, anyway, for the rest of the season.
It's not been confirmed yet, Froomie, so let's
Come
just
on.
hold hope.
Come on, they're not going to get. No, I think they would have said by now. But yeah, if it is 2, they'll be pushing Fnatic for the playing spot. I don't think they're better than Fnatic yet, but it really depends on like how Ericsson and Chrisberg can sort of step up as the carries in the team. But yeah, Nordavind I'd put in A, and I think fairly simple.
And I absolutely agree. I put them in A, because of the fact that I think that what lost Nordavind a lot of games, I think we've talked about, is like there was a lack of identity, I think, in the way that they played in spring sometimes. Like I felt like they didn't know how they were going to play with these players, and you would hope and you would expect, I'm not even saying you would hope, you would expect that after a year together with a year contract, kind of having the chance to be able to, meet up, in gaming houses. Hopefully, I think they've been able to do that anyway. But like the ability to kind of have that, you would hope now that they've cracked that this is how we're going to play, because they did kind of touch on that, I think, in the spring split. We should expect to have a much stronger, like synergized side this year for Summer, because I think, like I said, maybe touch is, like I said, the only one where I have a little bit of doubts, but I think like skill-wise, all of them I think are great players and should, potentially go on to bigger and better things if they do well at Nordavind this split anyway.
Yeah, I agree. Fully agree.
And Kerberos is, S+ tier top laner, so
Sometimes. Like he is one of the biggest coin flip tops in terms of like what you get. Lovely guy and good voice, but sometimes like Curb can run it down. But I think there's been so many games where Curb's just popped off randomly on all sorts of random stuff. Teams don't know how to deal with him when he brings out crazy stuff as well. But that's kind of like the top laner that Curb's been pigeonholed into. He can play meta stuff as well when he feels like it. I just don't think he finds it as enjoyable.
Yeah, I was looking at MSI, and this is how much I am embedded into like NLC at this point. Because I was like, imagine if this was like some of the NLC meta. I think Kerberos would have absolutely loved the meta. I think the way it was in top lane. I think because you got the chance to carry, the opportunity to carry from the top lane, and but hopefully, we're not going to see that away. I don't think there's going to be much.
Well, speaking of your favorite top laners, Tom, do you know? Has anyone seen where Mimesis has landed? Because I don't think he's in the NLC, is he? A split? I don't remember seeing anything.
I know where he's going.
Oh, maybe unannounced then, is that?
But I think he's going to be playing in his native region in the Balkans on probably the best team there. But if it's not been announced, then I'm not going to say which team it is.
Fair enough. All right, let's move on.
It's not in the NLC, and that makes me upset. Like it's not in the LEC. That makes me upset. So.
Oh. Let's move on from that for now. Let's go to Resolve. Obviously, the sort of new team in the league, being that it's obviously was Barrage's spot.
It was a great playoff victory by Resolve. Talia Masters run, made it up, promoted.
Yeah, and Barrage were relegated, weren't they? That's That's what...
Well then, Froomie, before Resolve, then the roster that you were some way through putting together, then where would that have been in the tier list?
Oh, we would have won the league. We would have won it. Yeah, easy peasy. No, my plan was to try and keep a lot of the lads together. Obviously, I think it would have been difficult because Random ended up going to STV. I really wanted to keep Kevo and Mummus, and really like Debu and Zephyr as well. I think Zephyr's not playing the split now. Debu's obviously gone to Lowland Lions, so he's playing Benelux. Kevo's on a team in PSV with Nightmares and Kremel. Nightmares, who I've worked with twice. I've worked with Kevo twice, never together, and obviously worked with Kremel as well. And I was looking at that roster just like, oh, I wish I was there, man. I wish I was great with you guys. But they're being managed by SVA, another good UK manager, so I'm going to be supporting those guys in the Benelux for sure.
Nice.
And they've got the nice Pringles sponsorship, haven't they? I believe the Dutch league. Sorry. So
yeah,
Very
let's
good.
all get fat together on the Pringles.
Well, let's go to Resolve's roster then before we get too sidetracked. So Resolve have obviously kept a couple of pieces from the UKLC. Soft and Fastlegged are there. Chimera as well, which was probably the biggest surprise on the roster for me. Like, obviously, someone that's been around the UK League for a while, and has been with Resolve when they won the UKLC last split. But yeah, it was not someone that I'm like seeing it and thinking, oh god, he's going to struggle. But clearly, a step up for him. First time he's been in the NLC, and I suppose it's going to be one of the bigger question marks on the roster will be whether Chimera can make that step up or not. It's a bit of an interesting one.
Yeah, I mean, Chimera's been in that perpetual limbo where I think he's too good for the UKLC, but is he good enough for the NLC? And I think that roster is going to be determined by that. But I know that Soft, Chimera, and Achu really bounce off each other well. Like they've been on Phelan together, they were on M&M together.
Mhm.
Obviously, Soft and Achu were on Trick together, and then Soft and Chimera were on Resolve together. So they're a team which are already quite like synergized, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Chimera is going to be instrumental on whether this team makes the playoffs or whether they don't, I think. But for me, like, what is this team like when it loses? Because we saw in the UKLC they just hammered everyone, right? And it's argued that they've definitely got an upgrade on top with Calum, for sure, who I think has sorted out his toxicity issues from the past, and from what I'm told, really determined, really good top laner. Seen him play for Z10 last split and Madeline's Academy before. Looked good. Question marks over Fastlegg's mental, I think. Emre is great when your team is winning, but he's not so great when the team is losing. I think Resolve are going to lose games this split, like for sure. They're going to lose a few games.
I mean,
It's
only
it's
some would
gonna
say
be-
that. You don't know. You don't know.
They've got XL in the first game of the season, man. Like, come on. Yeah, it's gonna come down to whether the team can bounce back, because I know that a lot of the players in the team won't sit with Emre's like negativity when they lose. I don't think Gachi will take it. So Emre's got to learn, like, it's a bigger league. He's got to accept that they're going to lose games and needs to keep his mental up. Otherwise, I can see that becoming quite difficult. They've got a rookie coach as well, Caracal Jr., who was a support in Spain. Very little coaching experience, but apparently, very experienced when it comes to the game. So, yeah, I think they have three really, really good players in Calum, Sof, and Achu, and that's why I've put them in B. I think if they're going to make the playoffs, it's going to come down to Fastleg being able to keep a cool head, because I think mechanically he can be decent. It's just he has it in him to tilt, and I think he needs to put that aside, knowing that it's his first time in the NLC. It's a step up, and I think it also comes down to if Chimera can keep pace with some of the mids. Is he going to be able to keep pace with Ericsson? I don't think he can keep pace with Hatrickson for Bivin. I'm looking at Ericsson, Paulson, a few of the others, like Simply, for example, is someone who would say is a middle of pack mid. Is he going to be better than that sort of level? And that'll determine where Resolve are going to end up. I've put them in B. I think they have a good chance of making the playoffs. But it's 50-50 with the other team that I've got in B as to which one is going to make the playoffs, in my opinion.
I am going to disagree. I guess it's pointless because you're both putting them in B. I think Resolve are going to the moon. I'm going A. I mean, to the moon would be S+, but A. Like, I really, really like this roster. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head for me straight away. You know, Soft, Kamira, Achu, you know, kind of know each other. Obviously, you've got Fast-Legged there who kind of has built synergy with these players as well. You know, Caleb is, like you said, the only kind of person who's not really had experience with these guys. But, you know, from a technical level, you've got to say that it's an improvement. I think that, again, synergy could play a very important part. You know, they're not going to beat XL, if I'm going to be completely honest, but you know, the games after that, I think they've got very, very good chances about. Chimera, I think I just want to root for him. I think maybe it is a bit of bias, yeah, because I just want to root for this guy to kind of do really well in this league, and I don't think he's going to be like, you know, top 3, even top 4, but I think he could be like a consistent name or a consistent player through that. And as long as he doesn't do bad, I do think you've got like, you know, Calum, Soft, and Achu who could, you know, potentially take hold of that game and win games for that team. So, you know, I do think that maybe you don't need like a mega star in the midfield or someone who can kind of help.
I suppose, Tom, you're like the positive voice in my head, which is like, yeah, go Resolve, and that's the reason that I'm like, yes, come on, like they can do it, they can do it. But there's that voice in my head which is like, they've still got 3 players from that roster that bottled it at Telia. Everyone was thinking they were going to do well, and they didn't get out of the groups, and we've got to look at that why that is. Could it have been the coaching staff? Did Artorias? And you're telling me Yusa made that much of a difference? I think Yusa is a NLC standard AD carry. Are you going to tell me that Artorias was really that much of a difference that they couldn't make it into Telia? So you've got to hope that it was coaching staff and Artorias.
But I would also say that you look at Sof and Achu, and I think that they've been
they bounce off each other well.
That they bounce each other well.
But I think this roster, I think this roster can make playoffs depending on how they do in comparison to Trek, who I think are the other big team in their group, which we'll go over in a bit.
Yeah.
But I don't think it makes EU Masters, and I don't think it beats Nordavind or the other team I've got in A.
No, I don't think so either. I'll tell you what though, I'm glad to see a UK team in the NLC actually pick some UK players, because that was just doing my head in when the other teams didn't do that.
Yeah, thanks. Not like I tried to, I'm going to say that. I tried to sign Soft 3 times, and he left all the other times. He won't mind me saying that. He knows, everyone knows.
Hey,
but like,
Kevo is basically English.
I said I said to Jeff, like, I need more money, and he was just like, no way, Froome, no way, no more. You're on £10, and that's it. No.
Good stuff. Let's move on from
Barrage
results then.
hates the UK, anti-Brexit.
We've actually got though just a little bit. Like, I know I don't want to take too much of a time.
Ironically, we left
will be for ages, but I think that we've actually got quite a lot of UK talent coming in now, haven't we? Like, it's quite nice to see more UK talent.
This must be the most UK players there's been in an NLC split so far, I think.
Yeah, I mean, a lot. Yeah, especially with.
That's what I mean. And so that's good, you know, because it obviously, you know, maybe it's short term and stuff like that, but it does kind of show how it is good to kind of have
it's
like,
not just like
leagues and systems.
Yeah, and it's not just that. It's players that have played in the UK scene as well in the NLC. So like players that have played in the UKLC both iterations. So nice to see a lot of familiar faces. You know, the UKLC is taking over with our Wadorg outside of Academy.
But we've got other UK players. It's fine.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
Let's move on then to Riddle, who have one of the more interesting UK player pickups then. So yeah, we talked about a little bit off stream. So obviously Riddle have got Afflict as their jungler, who more or less last played like 3 years ago with Misfits Academy when they were like winning the UK at the ESL Prem and Forge of Champions, stuff like that. And he's basically been nowhere for 2.5 years or so, and suddenly is now on Riddle's roster. To be fair, to me, it doesn't look like an amazingly good roster. I've got them C tier. It's another one of those where there's just nothing that really sort of jumps out as you know what's going to be a driving force really.
But they've got a Korean mid, like come on, you know. I mean, I think he's like Queen Swedish. No, I have a little bit more faith in this roster. I don't, if I'm going to be completely honest, I don't really know why, but I've put them B tier. I do think that maybe they could pull something pretty good, but genuinely, like, I actually like Gubi and I like PlayStation, and maybe that gets you a little bit of flack, but I actually do quite like those two as teams. I like Kets as well, and yes, like Solo Q and Afflict are probably the two if I'm being honest, have no idea about. Like Afflict was a little bit too before me in terms of getting into things. I literally told Froomie, I was like, Froomie, give me a brief history of Afflict, and kind of on how that goes. And so I'm not like particularly confident, but is he going to be the worst? Probably not. If we're being completely honest. So I think for me, I've put B because I just think that's actually the side where I think they're probably not going to get relegated. I don't think they're going to be in a relegation zone. Maybe they'll push for playoffs, but I think that for me, A is like you're pushing for playoffs or getting into playoffs. B is you're probably just going to be smooth sailing. And I think that this side does have just that, really.
Yeah, weird one. Again, it could be B, it could be D, similar to like Galaxy Racer. I'd put them in C. We've got to look at Afflict. He's not played. Well, he had apart from like a brief stint trying to qualify for Balkan League and failing. He played for Misfits Academy, won the UKLC or the ESL UK Premiership and Forge of Champions back to back, and then didn't play for 5 splits. What? Like, that's crazy. What? Why has he not been picked up? I know there's like all the rumors about like the guys, L9, quite toxic. But all of a sudden he's on this roster. He wants to come back to playing, I guess. I don't know how good he's going to be now. Traditionally, like, Afflict struggled in rosters without order. Back in the day in the inaugural Forge of Champions when it was the actual league. Misfits Academy were really, really struggling when they had Mosting at head coach and Kenzuke mid, as opposed to Special and Zen. And when they swapped Special back in and they swapped Zen back from the assistant coach at Misfits' LEC or EULCS back then team, he started playing well again. So I think he's the type that needs a structured environment, otherwise he struggles. I don't know what he's going to be like now. 5 splits is a long time. To me, like, it's borderline like a rookie coming back into the league. It's crazy. Slow Q, I mean, he's Korean, so he's got to be good. He's a rookie.
I know nothing about him. Nothing about this person.
He's a rookie. He's Korean. I've got to think it's got to be something to do with Nias, who was working with a Korean team.
I think he's got Swedish nationality according to like.
I watched a video earlier today, and it seems like a little bit of a language barrier, but he speaks English, so there is that. PlayStation and Gubby, they've got really, really good history. PlayStation not so much. Gubby definitely. I don't know how good Gubby's going to be in comparison to either carries like Chrisberg or a Chu or even M-Test. Like, I think he will be decent. And probably the best player on the roster. Kex is a player that has been in so many bad rosters, despite me still thinking he's all right. Like, he's been on rosters which have done poorly, but I've always thought Kex is steady. Like, but I don't see this roster. I mean, it's in the group with the perpetual like 4 teams that are very similar, so it could make playoffs. It could go disastrous. They could be relegated. I'll put them in C. I think it's a fine roster. I'll be very interested to watch Reflect over the course of the split.
I think C is fair in our big ever-growing pool of C-tier teams that we've got now. I reckon it does look like the bot lane is probably the more likely avenue for them to pick up some wins, but yeah, we'll see, I suppose.
It's actually a team which I'm very just out of everything. Like, I looked at kind of that roster and I'm like, I mean, I actually want to see how this roster plays. So I guess that's a good thing, It's like there's actually intrigue of like, oh, I'm probably going to make up my way to watch this roster, and really trying to see how they do, and whether it goes well or goes badly. So at least that,
Riddle absolutely shouldn't be in C, like as an org. Like, they are one of the richest orgs in terms of what they put into league outside of the academy teams. Like, they should be in A. They should be able to build rosters that are in A. So the fact that we're putting them in C, it's sort of like, for the budget they have, I think they've done quite poorly in the off season. Like, I think they could have bought in much better players and built a super roster, but I don't know whether that's down to management or not. Maybe I'm completely wrong and it goes on to make EU Masters and I look like an absolute idiot on the VOD.
Do what I did with Barrage.
Yeah, maybe. But I feel like Riddle could be doing more with their roster builds with the money that they've got.
Well, to be fair, out of the 3 so far, yeah, the clearly best one was just the one that was more or less handed to him, wasn't it, by the players? So
Yeah, when Smeagol brought on the roster of the 5 Danes, yeah.
So we'll see.
Which I then nabbed and won a cup with, and they didn't. So that makes me the better manager.
Apparently. Who's unemployed now though? So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm on holiday, mate. I'm on holiday. I'm
Gardening leave. Let's move on to Team Singularity, who I'm going to go out on a limb and predict is everyone else's at least one of the other A-tier teams. Obviously, same roster as last year. The one that did really well, kind of above expectation, at least on paper from last year, with the likes of like Dragdar coming into the NLC for the first time. But they've obviously done really well. Came fourth, I think. Didn't they lose just to Nordavind, or they just beat? It was either like third or fourth.
We were the better team, and I think they just had a luckier route in the playoffs, not playing Nordavind when we played Nordavind. So fourth, yeah, the fourth best team. Yeah, but no, decent team. And I think the fact that they've kept the same 5 and not lost anyone is a good sign. But I think it is just a little bit worse than Nordavind. I think you know you've got a lot of big personalities on the roster, and you've got a very young coaching staff. I really like Sorok. I really like Kiao. But when you have players like Prosper on the roster who have been around for such a long time and have such an extensive game knowledge, I think it must be difficult for the coaching staff to assert their authority on a player like that. And especially, considering they've got quite a few veterans on the roster. Like, I think if the coaching staff and the players get on the same page, I think this roster has a chance of making a UM or pushing Fnatic at least to try and get the spot. I think this has to be Nolty's season where we see, is he going to step up? Because everyone said in the past, like, Nolty's a good jungler, or Nolty's a good jungler, but they're just behind, like, X. It's time for Nolty to say, like, I'm a good enough jungler to make it to the next level. Otherwise, he's going to be stuck at this level forever. So, yeah, I think Prosper is one of the best supports in the league. I think Dragdar is on an upward trend, as we've said before. I think Wazor is the second best top laner in this league outside of Arome. Who's the other one? Who am I missing? Fury. Fury's fantastic.
Yeah.
Fury and Random were like on that level of like Fury, Random, Ericsson, best mid laners outside of the academy teams. Random's not in the league anymore, and I don't think there's a mid laner who's come in that's as good. So Fury has a good chance to be on a big stage. Same with Ericsson, where these two mids can step up and show I'm academy ready. But they all have to be on the same page. But I think it is a really good team. I think it's the second best team in Group A, and outside of maybe Resolve and Tricked, I think they're going to be hard pressed to have that second place spot removed from them. I think it makes playoffs. I just don't know how well it's going to do when it's just the top half teams playing against each other. I put them in A.
Yeah, I agree. I love this roster. I actually was really impressed with kind of how they developed as a team throughout the split, and I think that they are hopefully getting a little bit better. It's funny really because I kind of look at Team Singularity, and I look at Nordavind, and I kind of do see like not the similarities, but in the way that they are in terms of projection of where I expect them to be, even though they do play two different play styles. Like I think that both will benefit from actually having like a benefit, extra time together. Dragdar Prosper, really glad that duo worked out. Like I think that was actually really impressive. I hope that continues to impress this summer. And there is, I mean, as much as I am like positive of obviously about UK, there is obviously the slight worry of can Dragdar keep this momentum going, but I do think he personally can, but obviously we've seen it where players can have like a really good split when they first come in and then kind of just dwindle down and maybe not have that same impact. And I agree, like I think this should be Nolty's best chance to kind of show us or show everybody kind of what jungler he can be, because I think that now he's kind of got the team behind him. He's got like a great support behind him as well. So I'm really looking forward to this side. I'm really looking forward to seeing this team continue. And yeah, like I do have them A. Like I said, it is toss up between them and Nordavind for me.
I think so too. And just especially with these guys and Nordavind both keeping the rosters, it really like the biggest shame about the EU Masters seeding, because if you think like these two teams sticking
We're
together,
getting 3 seeds, guys. Stop it. We're getting
We're
3
not,
seeds.
Tom. Stop
We
kidding
need
yourself.
another good EU Masters again, and then another one, and another one, and then we
Yeah.
might keep our seeding.
But it's just, for me, it's like a real shame to see like two of them actually stick the rosters together, like keep them together, build on spring, and hopefully see them sort of contest in that third place at least. Again, obviously, they'll have hopes to be pushing for Fnatic's second spot anyway. But yeah, it'll be a shame, I think, if you see these two teams still sort of progress throughout the whole year, and then it's just the 2 spots for the 2 academies still. So I don't know. It's a bit of a shame, I think, but it is what it is.
It is what it is.
That leaves us then with 1 team left, which is obviously
right.
Trick.
I want to know why you guys haven't put this team in A tier. Like, I'm really interested. So obviously, it is Trick Esports. It's Madly, Taxa, Poulsen, then Voxnate Unlucky. Why is this team not A tier? Because for me, I look at this as an A tier.
They're not as
team.
good as Spring.
It has some very obvious weaknesses and question marks on the roster.
Go on through me.
Right. Do you want me to start with the good points or the questionable points?
Start with the questionable points because I know the good points.
Right. Okay. So let's start with Poulsen. Like, I think he's a steady mid, but I know for a fact that this wasn't the first choice roster that Trick wanted to go with, and I know that they were looking at different mid laners. Why would you be looking at different mid laners if you were that convinced that Poulsen was good? I think Poulsen is good. And it's under Vendetta with Den Voxnay, like 2 players that have worked under Vendetta before. Den Voxnay is a big question mark. He's still young, right? So there's still a chance that he can improve. When he was on Demise in the UKLC, he was performing really, really well in an arguably not so great roster. When he was on London last split, he was doing really, really well in the league below. And he did really well on Vipers as well under Vendetta. When he was on Barrage in the NLC, he struggled. I don't think he stepped up to the same levels that we've seen in the past. My question about Den Voxnay is, can he step up and perform in the top-end NLC team? Like I say, he's still young, so there's still time for him to improve. But he's playing with a support that doesn't have a huge amount of experience, but I know that they're friends outside of the game. Like, what's Unlucky done outside of Tricked? He has... Yeah, he's been playing in Balkan. Yeah, it could be decent. Again, they've got a top laner that's come out of the TCL who I don't really know how good they are. But the good point is Taxa, right? Like, this is an A/.
The glue. He is the glue.
Yeah, he is a top level jungler. Will Taxa be complacent that he's stepping down with worse players than he's used to playing with after a decent EU Master split? Is he going to get complacent? I don't know. He seems like a guy who's pretty level headed and straightforward thinking. So I think it won't be a problem for him. They also have Vendetta, who I think is a decent coach. I have question marks over how much trialing he was doing in the offseason, because I remember reading a tweet saying that they trialed Den Voxnay for 18 games and then originally said no. Like, they were going to go with, I think they were trying to keep hold of a Chew, but it didn't work out. But why would Vendetta need to trial Den Voxnay for 18 games after having him on a team previously? It just seems a bit bizarre.
It's because in case we have to do an EU Masters run like Riddle, where they have to play 20 games.
That's more games than the regular season.
Yeah.
But yeah, I put them in B. I think they have. I think if I was gun to my head, which one's going to make the playoffs that would result in Tricked, I'd say Tricked on paper. But yeah, I've put them in B. I don't think they're on the same level as Singularity or Nordavind, especially considering Singularity and Nordavind have a year together. And the coaching staff is as good as Vendetta, if not better. So there's not even that saving grace. That said, quite like the staff on Tricked. I don't know much about Madly. Maybe he's insane. But all I know is he's done okay in the TCL. And TCL is a very much like weird region where sometimes like all the teams are terrible or all the teams are quite good. So who knows? I just don't think they're on the same level as Nordavind or Singularity.
So I actually agree that I don't think they're on the same level as Nordavind and Singularity. However, I have Riddle in B, and so I also look at that roster and I'd be like, well, I can't. It would be really bad for me to put them like on the same as Riddle, in my opinion. So if there maybe was like a B plus for me, that's where I think this roster would have been. And I'm thinking more optimistically of putting him because I get you. Unlucky, obviously, hasn't got like the most experience, but he did okay with Kurt. It's crazy, but it's with a 4, isn't it? I think so, something like that. But I really, again, maybe it's like a chimera situation. I'm rooting for Devox there. I think he did really well for London, and I hopefully the Barrage split where he didn't seem to play like himself. I know it said it's a bit silly, but there wasn't kind of that spark sometimes with him, and I don't know kind of what happened around that, but hopefully he can kind of get through that. And to be fair, like surely all of these players are looking at it and thinking we've got a jungle like Taxa, and if Taxa can be the glue for this team to kind of hide those faults, which I think he possibly could, I think you have got a good shot of doing something really special with this team. I do also have to say, and again, like I think that maybe if this team had a year together, similar to Nordavind and similar, to the other team as well, I can't remember. But like I think that maybe they could have even improved and be on the same level. But yeah, maybe the experience does and the time together does help. But I am really positive about this side, and I do respect the fact that maybe we are gonna probably will get 2 EU Masters spots, but we're seeing actually a side which I do think shows like a lot of competitive intent. Like it doesn't look like a team which is kind of just settling for, oh, we're gonna go for like a mid-table finish. It definitely looks like there's been some intent going into this roster to try and get the best roster.
Mm. I think maybe having someone like Taxa could help Nivoxy as well. Like Taxa, he's not really someone that generally would play like carry junglers. I know he loves like the Sejuanis and stuff like that. So it could be one where it's maybe like more reliant on Denvoxney, which I don't know, could potentially work the other way if he bottles it a bit or something. But it could be the fact that they got someone like Taxa sort of helping the front line for him and things like that. So hopefully that'll help. We'll put them in B then. I think anyway, Tom, you're thinking about Riddle. We've got Riddle C, so you don't have to feel too bad about
that. Yeah, okay, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, no, again, it's another roster, and we'll probably go into a little bit more depth about this. But I'm actually really excited with some of these rosters, probably more than what I was last split. Overall, actually seeing some of these teams, I'm really, really happy actually seeing. For me personally, like a lot more intent. Obviously, we had like Barrage who had intent and a couple others, but for me, like it does feel just a little bit more like a step up, I think, in terms of quality. But then also on the other hand, I think you've got a few teams who have not stepped up as well. But I feel like you've got more kind of I think there's a bigger gap between like the worst and the best. But I think there's a group between two of them, which is a little bit better.
I think the Barrage roster last split was better than the Resolve roster now. And that's me trying to say that as unbiased as possible. I think the roster that we had on Spring, if we're going to say like Barrage and Resolve, like it's the same spot, right? I think the Barrage split, the Barrage roster last split was better, and it could contend with Nordavind and Singularity as it did. Like we finished above Singularity in the group. I do agree though that I think towards the bottom end, it's become more like hard to tell. Like Group B last split, it was very obvious. Like there were 3 good teams and 3 terrible teams, except like KOVA just slipped into the playoffs late on, didn't they? I don't think it's that obvious anymore. I think if you look at Group B, the 4 teams outside of Nordavind and Fnatic are so similar. Like we've got them all in the same tier. They're all C tier. One of them is going into relegation. One of them is going to make the playoffs. I think that goes to show that there's the teams are sort of closer, but I think we have lost potentially one team with intent. That's not to say that Resolve doesn't have intent. I think that they will be a better team in 2022 for sure. But I think considering they didn't have much time to put rosters together, the roster that they have put together is pretty good. Like I can definitely see some really, really good points on the roster. But
I mean, when you've got as well, I think that's great. If only Barrage could somehow got soft, like
money, no. Just didn't work out.
Well, let's before we wrap up, then now that we've completed the tier list, let's maybe have a bit of a look at the groups. And as always, as soon as the groups are out, I see people from each side saying that the groups are one-sided, and I think we found that like last couple of splits, really anyone we asked would always say that their group was the harder one. What we making of them? I presume it's done in a similar way again, where the teams sort of aggregate it.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do we think? Do we
I think
it's
Group A is way harder than Group B. Like
Really?
yeah. Like for me, I
There's
think
just more good teams in there, but there's 2 teams in there that are nowhere near as good as the other 4.
yes, yeah, okay, yeah, but that's what I mean. It's like because I think you've got like for me, you've got BT, they got Resolve, Singularity, and Tricked, and then yeah, you've got like unfortunately like Granite and Dusty, you know. But I feel like actually like in terms of I think it's going to be. I think I'd be more hard done by if I was one of those sides who didn't get into like the playoffs. Luckily, I'm going to get into that, but I feel a bit about hard more side for a side which is finishing 4th as opposed to Group B, where I feel like maybe they have like obviously like Fnatic and Nordavind, like kind of like the top 2. I think people would kind of expect, and then like the third one coming into that, and then I think 4th is a bit thingy. But I would also say with the great new format, which I think is what was heavily needed. You can't be too upset because you are still playing one of the other teams. So if you are like Group A and if you do feel like it's going to be very tight in that group for one of those 4 sides, if you can beat a Fnatic Rising, or if you could beat a Nordavind, that's probably the difference.
Yeah, I think looking at Group A, BTXL for me obviously make the playoffs and probably finish top unless something goes disastrously wrong. And I've got Singularity as the number 2 team. I've got sort of like Tricked or Resolve for the 3rd team. Like I say, I think if it was going to be decided like purely on paper and just from what I know about the players, I'd tip it just to Tricked, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was Resolved. I think Dusty finished 5th, and I think Granite are in the relegation zone. Watch it be completely wrong. Like that's the beauty of being able to do tier list. Yeah, for Group B, I've got Fnatic top, but it could easily be Nordavind. I don't think it's as clear cut. Like I think Nordavind has a chance of being the top team, but I've got Fnatic and Nordavind in there. And then I'm just looking at it, and I'm like, the other 4 teams could literally finish anywhere, and that's exciting.
There's 4 of our 5 C-tier teams are in that one group, so yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I don't think the groups are too dissimilar, because I think there are 2 better teams fighting over 1 spot in Group A, which are Tricked and Resolve. I think if they were in Group B, then it'd be pretty easy to say like this one's going to get the 3rd spot. But in Group B, there's no clear cut for who's going to get relegated, and there's no clear cut for who's going to take the last player spot. I've got it that Riddle just scrape it. Like I've got it that Riddle scrape into that 3rd spot, and then I've got Galaxy Racer and Godsent survive, and I've got KOVA just about in the bottom. I don't think that necessarily happens. That's just my gut instinct on paper. I could easily see Riddle in the relegation spot and KOVA in the playoff spot, but that's just how I just about judge it. But I think they're all on the same sort of level, and it's going to be an exciting group to watch. One of them is going to fall apart, and that's going to be the deciding factor, I think.
Yeah, I feel like with Group A, I feel like you've got 2 different kind of mentalities, which I think are going to happen basically on the last week. Like you're going to have Group B, which is like one side who's going to be like elated for getting that 3rd spot to get into playoffs. And then on the other side, you're going to get Group A of one side who finished 4th, knowing that they probably were good enough to finish 3rd. So I feel like you're going to get like a really happy Group B and then really sad in Group A for 2 of the sides, which is like I said, it's different, and I like that. To be fair, it's 2 kind of different groups.
Yeah, I think Group B is going to be the more exciting because it's going to go down quite late to see who's going to go in relegation, who's going to take the last spot. That said, I think there are better teams overall in Group A. I think if you look BTXL, Singularity, Tricked, and Resolve, like those are good teams, all 4 of them. Whereas in Group B, you've got Fnatic and Nordavind. Fnatic worse than XL, Nordavind probably better than Singularity, Tricked, and Resolved. So yeah, 2 different groups, but yeah, I think Group B is just spicy to see those 4 teams slog it out to see who's going to finish where. Whereas I think it's pretty clear cut, and watch it be completely wrong, that Dusty and Granite are lacking behind the other 4 in Group A.
Lee, are we doing quick predictions then, or because we probably won't do an episode on? Well, we probably won't do an episode on the Wednesday, will we?
No. I hadn't even thought of that, to be honest.
We could just quickly say it. We already know like our thoughts on the roster and stuff. So
yeah, let me just see what the first games are.
I don't even know most of the fixtures.
Yeah, I was just trying to find them.
I mean, I've got them here if you want me to go through them. So
yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Okay, so first game is Granite versus Tricked.
Tricked.
There we go.
Nice one.
Galaxy Racer.
Someone writing this
versus
down.
KOVA.
Someone
Oh yeah,
writing-
Leah, you're writing this down.
I didn't have anything prepared, but I can.
We'll watch it in the VODs. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on then.
Galaxy Racer versus KOVA. I'm gonna go with Galaxy Racer.
I'm also going to go with Galaxy Racer.
I'm gonna go KOVA. I think I had KOVA beta in mine, so
Yeah.
Yep.
got to
Cool.
go for something
BTXL
different.
versus Resolve. I'm gonna go with Resolve.
Really?
EU massive, like UK massive. There we go. Chimera is gonna prove to be the best mid laner in the.
I'm going to go with BTXL because I'm not crazy.
Yeah,
Come
same.
on.
I'll go for the points.
I like it
wonder-
though. Tom doubling down on points there.
I wonder prediction. Hey, if this does happen, I basically won the predictions already, so it's fine.
Hmm.
Dusty
Sure.
versus Singularity. I'm gonna go with Singularity.
Yep, Singularity.
Yeah.
And
Same.
then final day is that's quite a good one. Riddle versus Fnatic. I go with Fnatic, but quite a good
Fnatic.
game.
Fnatic. Actually, I'll go for a different one. I'll go Riddle. Maybe
Okay,
Fnatic
sure.
lost their first game last split, didn't they?
Yeah, so I have an opportunity to
did.
get all the points on that day. Come on. None of us are
Nordavind
gonna
versus
triple.
Godsent is on the second day.
Nordavind.
Nordavind.
Nordavind, yeah. Resolve versus Granite. Resolve.
Resolve.
Singularity versus BTXL.
BTXL.
XL.
Yeah. Dusty versus Tricked. I'm gonna go Tricked.
Tricked.
Dusty. Fuck it.
You gotta have one. You've gotta have one. There's always gonna be one.
I don't necessarily think that, but I'm gonna try and get all the points and look amazing, or just
Okay.
bottle it completely now. So we're doing-
Riddle versus Galaxy Racer. I'm gonna go with Riddle.
I'll go Galaxy Racer.
I go Riddle.
I like how you've gone for Fnatic to lose to Riddle and then no, Fnatic to beat Riddle. Oh no, sorry. Riddle to beat Fnatic and then lose to Galaxy Racer.
There's method in the madness, Tom.
Inconsistency. The inconsistent team. That's what we're going for, I think.
Who did you say again,
I'll leave.
Froomie? I've just written it down.
What was it? Riddle Galaxy Racer?
Yeah.
I went with Riddle.
All right, cool. We'll see them.
There we go. That's all of them.
I think that's as good a place as any to maybe start wrapping up then. Just obviously, before we do finish up, just look ahead to what's kicking off. Obviously, all the leagues are starting up again now. We can have a look at the UKEL fixtures coming up. Let me actually transition that. Hold on. There we go. So yeah, UKEL kicking off this Thursday with the big London derby to start with as well. Finally, we've got both London
We got it.
orgs in one
That's
league.
what I wanted.
Exactly.
That's what I wanted.
So we've got London Academy against London United, first of all, and then Monster Rugby Gaming against Demise, Nerd Rage against Lucendi, and then the two newcomers, X7 against Nox, to round out the day. So yeah, you can tune into that on Thursday.
London's gonna win the first game.
Go Jojo. Go Jojo on Monster Rugby. Jojo's going to tear up the UKL this split.
We'll see. And before that, actually, we will have another episode before then. We're having two pretty much back to back. So anyone that
Yeah, Freebie, we've double booked you now.
Yes, man. Yes, I'm hired.
maybe not for this one, but
Oh,
on Tuesday night, so only in a couple of days, we'll be live again with another tier list. This time we're doing a UK roster announcement mega tier list. So we're going to go through all the UKLC and UKEL roster announcements and rate each one. And Froomie, just for you, we'll take into account the order that they put the players in as well. Maybe deduct some points for that.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of the support being the first one because they're into
Why?
No.
if it's not top jungle, mid, AD carry and support, then the org doesn't care. It doesn't care about league. Doesn't know about league. Jeff purposefully last split in the announcement put, I think he swapped around Random and Kevo, and just to spite me, and everyone atted me in my DM saying I can't believe you said all this stuff, and I was just he's done it on purpose, just to wind me up. Another thing I've been ranting about is graphics this split. I really hate it when teams release a graphic with the champions, champions or skins or whatever, and then the names. It's can you not just get player graphics or do a little video with them saying hello, I'm playing or whatever like that? Yeah, it really goes through me, man.
Well, I'm sure you'll enjoy watching that one. Then we'll call those out for you.
Absolutely.
Are we gonna have like a screen grab, aren't we? I think.
Yeah,
Just
so
so we can
I'll
actually
try and do
see
it similar to what we've got on here, so we'll watch it on stream at the same time, because some of them will have little videos and things. So yeah, we're very interactive, high level production.
Technology advancing. Yeah.
Definitely. Well, that pretty much wraps it up for this one then. So thanks, Froomie, for joining us for the 70th time. Always nice to have you on, and I'm sure it won't be too long until we have you on again.
I've got loads of time now. Yeah. If the NLC teams are looking for a manager next split, hook me out.
Sounds good. And yeah, anyone that's been watching, then obviously we've still got a few knocking around on Twitch, and we've had plenty in the chat. So do follow the UKEL here, obviously, to watch our episodes and the next one on Tuesday, as well as the UKEL games, like we said, starting up on Thursday. Otherwise, if you're watching back on YouTube or listening back on a number of platforms that we're on now, Google Podcasts and all sorts now, as well as the usual Spotify.
I've got to add that into my retweet.
So
also, shout out to Tieflin or Sam Parker, who told me to get him a shout out in the show some way. There you go, my fellow Welshman.
Right at the end.
There you go.
That's good. You're making what Froomie has to watch the whole episode.
We've already
now
gone.
I can
We're already
test.
off.
Now I can test if he's listened to the end. So yeah, I can not get called out.
Good stuff.
Have you not told him, Lee, that we do pre-recorded exits for the outros now for the podcast? This is all gone. It's just for the Twitch.
That's how Jeff's right. I'm earning my money now through shout outs and talk shows. So there we go.
Good stuff.
Not that Barrage paid me. In fact, I paid them to stay on the roster so that we could fund the roster, because Jeff was tight with his money. So
yeah, it's a bit like, remember when Rafa Benitez was like leaving Newcastle because of the money, and Richard Keys said that he should fund the transfers himself. A bit like that. Yeah.
Exactly the same.
Let's wrap it up before we go on to more odd challenges.
Get cancelled or
To get another 2 hours out of this easily.
So yeah, cheers for watching. Obviously, like we said, follow on all the platforms. That covers all the bases. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for listening.